Well, hello guys, it's actually that one noob here today, and I am actually so excited because I'm doing my first video review ever, and it's gonna be for none other than the Audioquest NightHawk. Before I go further, I should probably explain a bit about why I'm doing a video review. As some of you may know, I've been writing and doing my photography for quite a while now, and no offense to my D700, I love it dearly, but I am getting a wee bit bored of doing that. So I believe that with each review we should always try to improve a certain aspect of the review and do something better. And this time around I just said, hey, why don't we just do a video review? Just go big and do a video review. And it's definitely been a very interesting experience because I have learned a lot. A lot in the sense that I'm not very good on camera, and I think hopefully you guys don't see too much of that in this video. I've tried my best to edit it so that it's a smoother product, but I think moving forward things will probably get a little bit smoother, more fluid, and hopefully better. But I think one of the great benefits about doing a video review is that sometimes when you write and you do photos, it can be a little bit difficult to explain what exactly it is you're talking about. And with a video review, I can just directly show you guys. So I hope that, well, I don't think that these will be replacing the reviews at any rate. It might make for a good complement, I think, to the writing. And so without further ado, let's get started. Well, what is Audioquest? As some of you probably know, Audioquest is a high-end cable manufacturer that recently got into the personal audio business with their small thumb drive-sized USB DAC amps. I think it's called the Dragonfly, and it's been very well received by the audio community. Going off of that, Audioquest has thus developed the Audioquest NightHawks, which you see right here. Now, I think one of the great things about this headphone is that it's been designed from a ground-up perspective. So Audioquest actually sought to reevaluate each step of the manufacturing and design process, and the result is a very unique headphone with many fairly new technologies. I think the most obvious is the liquid wood enclosure. What is liquid wood? Well, actually, it was developed in the 90s by two German scientists as a bioplastic, and I think it's currently being produced by a company called Technora with the trade name Arboform. And this was used in this headphone by Audioquest because of its acoustic properties, and also because it's incredibly environmentally friendly. So, a plus to Audioquest for keeping an eye out for the planet. Removing the extremely comfortable pleather ear pads, you can actually see the 50mm biocellulose driver, if I can get the lighting right. Yes, this is a 50mm biocellulose driver. Some of you are probably wondering, well, haven't we seen that before? And you'd be exactly right. With cans like the Fostex TH900 and even the legendary Sony R10, the companies have applied biocellulose drivers very successfully before. And I think one of the benefits of biocellulose drivers, as Audioquest will tell you, is its ability to achieve so-called true pistonic motion. So if you imagine a headphone driver moving through its excursion, sometimes, especially with poorer drivers, you get a bit of that distortion, so i.e. the driver is bending. Well, with a biocellulose driver, the driver is able to pretty much move through the excursion with a very solid, rigid surface. The benefits of this are an increased acoustic velocity and also a wider frequency bandwidth. So definitely, I had some expectations going to the NightHawks, knowing that they were using biocellulose drivers. So let me put the ear pad back on, and then we'll start discussing the other very interesting feature, which is the grill. This grill was actually inspired by butterflies' wings and the way that they diffuse light. In similar fashion, these are meant to diffuse sound, and they have been 3D printed by Audioquest, because apparently conventional manufacturing processes simply wouldn't allow for such a complex pattern to be created. So definitely a lot of engineering behind this. Moving on to the more practical aspects of this headphone, you'll see that the enclosure here is mounted via four prongs onto the headband here. So actually this is incredibly comfortable as it allows for a wide degree of motion, and it fits just about any head, I think. Unfortunately, while this is incredibly comfortable down here, the headband is not. I think it's a bit narrow, and for larger heads like my own, after long listening periods, it really does begin to exert a sort of pressure on your head. And especially since it's not just, it doesn't just float, it's using this very strong elastic. I hope that through the course of its shelf life, this headphone's elastic band doesn't start to wear out, though I suspect that it may. So that's definitely one thing to watch out for. Apart from that, this is an incredibly solidly built headphone. The cable features, naturally, some of Audioquest's proprietary cable technology. I think it's a pretty nice cable. As you can tell, it's quite a few kinks in it, and just unfortunately it doesn't feel quite as nice as some other cables that we see from manufacturers, like the Fostex TH900 cable, which you can tell is very smooth. This has some kinks, which I'm sure is probably due to the proprietary technology included, but it's not so nice in the hand. And the other cable, in fact, there's another cable included, an unmarked audio cable that's supposedly more durable than the previously mentioned cable, and this is what you'd use for day-to-day use. The last accessory I think that's included is the silver-plated copper interconnect, which mind you is very, very nice. This is one of those few interconnects that I can really get behind. I've had headphones before that come with their own interconnects, but unfortunately they don't even fit that well. And I'm not going to mention companies here, but that is a bit of an issue. You'll have no such problem with the Audioquest, though. This is an excellent interconnect, and props to them for doing that. So let's get down to the sound, and I think this is where a lot of those disagreements start coming up. And if you go through the forums, you'll see tons of discussion regarding the Audioquest NightHawk and how it sounds and why people can't seem to get along, okay? Part of the main reason is because the Audioquest NightHawk tends to focus on the bass. The bass of these headphones is centered primarily around the mid bass, and it's very weighty. It's kind of like, it reminds me of the Final Audio gear, in fact. It's not the same mid bass that you'll get on an El Cheapo $20 or more bass headphones. No, that's not the kind of mid bass we're talking about. Instead, we're talking about a mid bass with solid presence and a lot of weight. And unfortunately, this mid bass does tend to become rather prominent. With the sub bass, which mind you has good extension, sometimes the mid bass in fact does kind of drown out the sub bass. But there are also other instances where the two can work brilliantly together to come up with some of the most enveloping and engaging sounds I've heard. So I think it's perhaps not the most consistent bass section. It's not, in my ears, it's not as consistent as the TH900, which very often blows my mind in terms of how deep it can go, okay? But the bass section on these is not as consistent, but it can be glorious. The main issue then, you might be asking, what is the main issue? Yeah, it crops up in the mid-range, and that's where things start getting a bit iffy. Lower mids-wise, these rock. The lower mids, especially on some of the older bossa nova tracks, it works brilliantly with the bass section, and things just sound incredibly engaging and lively and musical. But the upper mids, yeah, they're recessed. And in fact, sometimes they sound a bit thin. And I think this is where things kind of get a bit rocky and why people have very strong opinions about this headphone. Yeah, the upper mids are recessed. If you move a bit further, you'll find that the highs aren't actually too bad. The highs provide a great contrast. They have solid texture, and this contrasts, like I said before, very well with the bass. It's not sparkly. It's definitely not sparkly, but it has a certain twang. It's getting there. I try to explain this in the writing, but it is difficult. Overall soundstage, it's not that wide. It's a bit like this. Depth is good. Depth and layering is good. You definitely get a sense of that, but it's not wide, and the height is also not that great. So in essence, you have a more intimate sounding headphone. Imaging is okay too. It's definitely not T1 level, you know. Soundstage, yeah. Separation, yes, there's surprisingly good separation. It's good separation, but because the soundstage is rather small, things do tend to come together and become a little bit smushed, okay? I think the greatest strength of these headphones then is perhaps in the general sonic direction. With certain genres, slower genres like bossa nova, these are a dream, you know. Especially, they're very smooth in the lower frequencies, and even extending through to the highs. Overall, it's a very smooth headphone. Unlike the TH900, which, as some of you may or may not know, and also may or may not agree with, can get slightly harsh at times. So these are very smooth. They're a very enjoyable headphone to listen to. And I think if you're not looking for a headphone that does high energy genres, the NightHawk is in fact a very musical, somewhat laid back headphone. And I think, personally, it's a good sounding headphone. I can understand some of the criticisms behind it, but overall, I think if you give it a chance, you get used to the sound. This definitely has a steep appreciation curve. This is actually a very fun headphone to listen to. And I think that's about it. That's about all that I want to say about the Audioquest NightHawk. It's simply been a great experience, and I have to say I really would like to thank Audioquest for giving me this opportunity to spend some time with the NightHawks. I hope you guys really enjoyed this review. I think there's things to improve, and if you have any constructive criticisms, comments, just feel free to comment below, and as always, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Hey, thanks guys, and it's That One Noob, signing off.